So I've just released my new dawless EP, Live Layer by Layer, which, if you haven't been following the progress on this, and maybe if you're new to who I am, my name's Gavin Forbes and I write instrumental electronic music, and I've just released my new EP where everything was recorded as full takes with no edits, really live, one layer at a time. All of this was done in my Zoom Live Track 12 mixer, where again it was all mixed in the box there, and then the only thing that was done in a DAW was final mastering to go out for release. And as such, this has taught me quite a few valuable lessons, if I'm honest. As someone who did all my previous releases in the DAW, in Ableton, it's been a real learning curve, and it's taught me quite a lot of valuable lessons that I'll take moving forward into projects working in the DAW. The biggest thing being embracing the imperfections. When everything's recorded in minimal takes, and by that I mean 1 or 2 run-throughs, sometimes 3 or 4, to kind of learn the part, get to grips with it, and then really doing 1 or 2 final takes to see which one sounds the best, you're not really giving yourself much scope for perfection. This isn't like recording in a DAW where you can do individual little sections and repeat things, have multiple takes at it. This is really the polar opposite. It's, well, there might be little flaws here or there, we'll live with them. And I think as such, what you actually get here is a more human feeling performance. In all my previous releases, I've over-edited on some instances, kind of going too far with the retakes. And actually what you did earlier, while it wasn't perfect, had way more emotion, character, human feel, whatever you want to call it. And I think you can lose that the more you do retakes. So actually this is already one thing that's really changed the way I'm going to work moving forward. And this doesn't mean that I'll never fix things. In fact, what it means is I might be more selective about what I fix. Is there just one really bad note in an otherwise really great take? Well, I could punch in and fix that one little thing, but I'm not going to fix lots of little small things. I've always liked to say I was someone that didn't over-edit, but being honest, I kind of have in the past. And there's things that I've really critiqued in my performance in the past, to the point where I sometimes look really negatively on the music. This is one of these things moving forward where I think I'm going to be more selective of what I fix and might be slightly less critical. And actually, if we can talk about it briefly here, I think imposter syndrome factors into this a little bit. Once I've finished previous recordings, because I did so much fixing, I kind of convinced myself, well, you couldn't really play that in the first place. And it really affected me negatively. To be honest, in particular with the fretless bass. I love playing fretless, but you will find nobody more critical of their intonation on the fretless bass than me. And this project's taught me to live with imperfections and embrace the fact that a fretless bass will not be perfectly in tune. Yeah, you still have to keep working with intonation, and I'm not saying that I'm perfect with this, far from it. I still make a lot of mistakes with that, and it's a constant learning experience, and one that I really enjoy, if I'm honest. But this project has kind of forced me to embrace subtle imperfections to live with the performance. The next thing it really helped with was actually the mixing. Now, the mixing was very minimal on this EP. Because there wasn't a lot of tools at my disposal. I've not got racks of outboard gear. I've got quite a few DBX gate/compressor racks, but that's it. I don't have lots of outboard gear. So I really had to just use what was in the Zoom mixer. Now that meant I could have one effect for my effect send. Usually it was delay or reverb. And I could use the built-in compression on each channel, plus the DBXs that I recorded through. It's the 266 XL. And I also had the onboard EQ, which again is just a 3-band EQ, bass, middle, treble with a selectable mid frequency. This doesn't give you a lot to play with, but actually it was good because it forced me not to look at all the options I had in the DAW like I would previously do and start doing really dramatic, over the top EQing and things that just maybe weren't actually helpful, were actually more detrimental in the long run. In fact, what I did instead was use my ears. Do the mids sound like they're a little bit too prominent? Well, let's find that frequency and do some either cutting or boosting depending on what I needed. I had to actually use my ears and really think about the mix that way as opposed to just throwing plugins at it. And again, moving forward, I think this will help me working in the DAW in the future, because I'm going to be more inclined to go with what sounds right rather than just throwing plugin presets at it. It also made me better at getting the gain staging right, making sure the levels of each individual track was balanced correctly before I exported it or even printed it from the mixer into Ableton for mastering. All of these things were things I had to start really thinking about, and I think it's actually been better and made me a slightly better mixer than I was beforehand. So again, I think that'll change things moving forward. The next thing is that I was no longer working with just loops. When you go into a DAW, you can throw in a drum loop and then start kind of trying ideas over the top. And that's great, I'll still do that. But what this actually made me do was flesh out ideas in the hardware with the poly-end tracker, with the modular, with my bass, and get a finished song really, or get a finished part for one of the instruments before I recorded it. Because there was no edits, there was no punch-ins, I had to record that full take in one go. And in some occasions I recorded a guide bass while I was doing the AE modular drums and sequencing. And then once I added the keyboards, I thought, actually, I could do this different on bass, and then I redid the bass part. So again, I think this is useful because I'm now thinking in songs rather than loops. I was guilty of this, and I think you actually sometimes don't finish songs when you just get a loop, because you'll jam over it and then you might get bored of it and you don't necessarily think about what happens next. At least for me. Again, I can only talk from my experience. Again, nothing wrong with working with loops. I do it still. There's times where I come up with an idea and I'll put a loop into the DAW. But after doing this, I think I'm actually more inclined to turn these loops into songs. I think I've worked on those skills a little bit. And that kind of factors into the last thing. I think it was good for releasing more music. Although it was recorded in full takes, because I wasn't overdoing it with some of these elements, I wasn't over mixing, I wasn't over editing, I wasn't overthinking it. The song was finished much quicker actually. So I think I've got better at finishing music, because these 4 songs only took a couple of months. In fact, there was lots of gaps between working on these songs because of other projects. This could have been done in 2 weeks had I actually only been focused on this. So I think this has actually been a good learning tool for that, really focusing on getting music finished. And because of all this, I think this has been a really good learning experience for me. It's something that I've really taken a lot from. It's not perfect. Like I've put at the start of the 3 songs that went on YouTube and on the EP, this has mistakes. This is not perfect, but it's been an experiment and a learning experience that I have taken a lot from. So I highly recommend, if you've got the chance to do it, try doing these things, because you might learn something from it. I didn't want to do a dawless EP and do it the way someone else would do it. I really wanted it to still be me. And I feel like I've managed to do that. It's still very much the way I would do things, but just in a different workflow. And it's taught me a lot about recording, mixing, and kind of the mindset of making music. It's really, really shifted my attitude moving into writing album number 3, which I've now just started. So with all that said, I think this is something everybody should give a shot if you're writing music. Try working in a different way to the way you normally work, because you might learn something from it. And like I mentioned in the intro, the EP is now out live, layer by layer, available on Bandcamp only just now, but I might put it on other places in the future. Not too sure about that right now. But it's available on Bandcamp, the 4 songs. So it's the 3 that you've heard on YouTube, plus an extra one. Let me know what you think. It's a bit different. Like I say, it was an experiment. So I'd love to know what you all thought of it. Let me know if you've got any songs you like. Let me know if you've tried this, because I'd love to hear other people's experiences working in this way. And if anyone else has suggestions on ways to mix up working on new music, please leave them in the comments, because I'm always looking for new ideas. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoy the EP if you give it a listen, and thank you for listening if you do check it out. Like I say, my music, including the EP, is on Bandcamp under Gavin Forbes Music. If you want more updates on new music, how album number 3 is coming along, any gigs, things like that, all of that's on Instagram, Gavin Forbes Music. I do have my existing music on here, linked below as well. And if you did enjoy this video, please do all the things everybody normally asks for: like, subscribe, click on the notification icon. And until next time, thank you very much for watching, and keep working on those bass faces.